In this episode, we dropping a part 2 of our video where we address the topic that I wanted to address last time. Is toxic masculinity real? Some of the men and all of the women said it's definitely real, but one brother held it down. Let's see exactly what conclusion they come to, or that we come to.
Roll clip.
Toxic masculinity is a real thing. We'll start by having the agreeing people come up now.
Do I think toxic masculinity exists? Yes. I don't think every guy has it, obviously. Growing up as a guy, we are kind of taught to be a certain way. Every guy has to be strong and like sports and drink beer and no, we don't need to do that. We can enjoy things that are not masculine. For an example, I like candles. You know what I mean? Like somebody will come into my apartment and be like, "Oh, that's gay." It's like, no, it's not. It's a fucking wood-scented candle. What do you mean? But yeah, I guess that's kind of where I am coming from on the point.
I think toxic masculinity is overused as a phrase, but it's totally a thing. I think there's these guys trying to prove that they're macho and prove that they are just strong and buff, and then they overcompensate for their insecurities, and it comes across way too aggressive, and it just rubs people the wrong way.
My issue with a statement like that is there are guys who are just attracted to masculinity as something to emulate. They have a natural inclination towards things that are a little bit more rough and tumble, and they have an inclination towards getting stronger, getting faster, being more physical, being more imposing, being more aggressive. Now there's debate in the field between what it is. Y'all heard me say it in the last couple of videos. Is it the neuroplasticity of our brains compensating for what society has said men and women are? Or is it that we are naturally inclined because there are differences in the way our brains are made up and the way we take in information? This is what I will say. As a man who has a son and a daughter who we simply allowed, especially in their youth, to do what they do. I didn't care that my son at 2 years old would pick up his sister's doll and start playing with it because he's 2. But what did he do with the doll? Naturally, without me inclining or even wanting him to do anything. He took the doll. He looked at it. At first, he was curious because, they're curious at a certain age. They're like, oh, what is this? And then once he sort of got over the, what is this? I don't... yeah! That's what my son naturally did. And my daughter, mortified, was like, get off and give it back to me. I don't like to give you anything. And it's been like that for the last 11 years. Yep. Because that's what they naturally did without me giving them any prompts whatsoever. And I've heard several parents say the same thing. If you pay attention to your kids, because many of the parents nowadays, because there's such a large single mom population, a much, much smaller single dad population, there's mixed blended families. A lot of people don't have time to actually pay attention to their kids at all. And they just take in information and impose it on the kids as opposed to paying attention to them. That's the beauty of having a 2-parent household. We have a little, and I do mean a little bit more time to actually pay attention to them so that we can figure out what they uniquely need as my daughter and as my son.
Right.
They can like the same thing, but what they want to do with the same thing is vastly different. He naturally has more energy. He naturally wants to run. He naturally roughhouses. He naturally wants to wrestle. There are some things that are natural that boys want to do and women want to do. And if you don't believe it's mental, like it's actually our brains, there are hormonal differences between men and women. Women's estrogens, with an S, because it's a category, not one hormone, makes them move differently. Yep. Makes them act differently. And our main hormone, and the one everybody always talks about, testosterone, very steady, but it has very specific things that it doesn't make you do, but that it makes you inclined to do. There are physical differences based on our biology. And I think the thing is, we believe in this society that everything would be better if men just acted more like women.
This is a really bad idea.
And I think that that's foolish because we live in this beautiful utopia that our ancestors have built for us in America, where we have a lot of privilege. The rest of the world don't care about all of the rights we all think we have. The moment we rest, they will pounce and they will be more than glad to take everything we have. Other men in other countries don't care about your beautiful egalitarian idea of society. And if we don't have men who feed that side of them that their testosterone naturally brings out of them, we are going to be vulnerable, and America will not survive. Period.
Yeah.
I don't know if you had anything you wanted to speak on, because I know I said a lot.
I agree with what both of you guys have said so far. I think you've done a really good job offering definitions as far as what it looks like as a woman who has been on the receiving end of some of that toxicity. My best way to define it is just by giving more examples of what I think it is. If I'm in the workplace, the service industry, for example, and my manager, who is a man, is repeatedly passing behind me and brushing up against my lower back, or a point to talk about how many times he's exercised this week. Those are little things that kind of add up as a woman who has experienced toxic masculinity that is rather frustrating. And I think the overcompensation, like you spoke to, is just really unnecessary. Like, can we have a conversation?
I was gonna say that's not toxic masculinity. Like,
That might be generally interest in you romantically.
That's obvious.
yeah.
And he might not know of another way to express it where he won't put himself on Front Street. There's a power dynamic there.
Yeah.
And if he likes you, that puts him in a position where he's like, I'd like to talk to her, but if I do it the wrong way, I could get fired.
Yeah.
That's not toxic masculinity.
Yeah. Well, in her mind, that's what
Well, I know she's the reason why chivalry is dead.
yeah.
So I fully remember exactly who she is. She
Yes.
killed chivalry. I mean, she probably not even 30, but 40 years ago, she killed it for sure.
You want to see what we're talking about? Look at this video right here.
And without the macho persona coming out, because at the end of the day, I see people as people. When I look at a man, I don't see a man first, I see a person. So you don't have to prove to me that you're a man, or whatever the case may be,
I think I agree with you most, actually, on what toxic masculinity is, but I would even go a step further and say that I think some men are just so afraid to be feminine or seen as feminine that they go above and beyond. Like, they have to show off to their boys, like, I'm a man, I can do this, I can, An example of that from my personal life is I dated a guy and I'm really into skincare, right? I think it's important to take care of yourself. He would not. No skincare, would not. My little drops or my face masks with me. Skincare's for everybody, but you correlate it so much with a woman that you're just refusing to take care of yourself altogether. Like, that just doesn't make sense to me, And I think...
Bruh.
It could just be he don't want to do it.
Well, duh.
All right, ladies, for the two of y'all that watch our channel, men, most of the time, they're real simple. Ladies, we use like 2, sometimes 3 different washcloths. Dudes use 1. We have serums and potions and all this other kind of stuff for our face.
That's right, because it's magic. That's right. Makeup is witchcraft.
I ain't even get to the makeup. I'm just talking about the skincare part.
I heard that before. I thought it was hilarious.
So yeah, you got the skincare in there. Dudes, they don't do all that. Nope. They barely put lotion on. All right, they put the lotion.
What?
I know you ain't talking.
I'm thinking about Cairo. Thinking about my son. I'm calling my son out.
That's just wrong.
That's true.
All right. So it's like they'll use lotion, 1 lotion for everything.
Yep.
Face, head. Well, no, you use shea butter. He used shea butter at least for his head because, he got a baldy. But, but before then, what was you using before then?
Like when I actually had hair?
No. Before, when you were rocking a baldy, before you had hair.
I was using like aftershave.
Okay.
And you have to.
Yeah. You don't want to break out.
Yeah.
But
I was using aftershave, and I can't remember what I put on after the aftershave. It might have been some type of oil. It wasn't like lotion, because that would feel horrible. Your head would probably be burning. So no, we can't do that.
But my point is, dudes, they don't do all that. It's not because they're afraid to be feminine.
No.
That's just not them.
Yeah. That's not toxic masculinity.
Yeah, that's not. That would be like the reverse, like a woman, like we're so afraid to show our masculinity that we won't open a door.
We won't open the door for nobody. It would be similar to that.
It's just like, it's just, no, that's not it.
I think maybe that's an extreme example, but I think it's one that's common.
Toxic masculinity, I think, is sometimes the root of the problem with when you think of like school shooters or really people who are getting into fights at school that may lean more masculine or boys because they don't know how to deal with emotions. There's not emotional intelligence that's being taught, and emotion for some reason is tied to the feminine, or showing emotion is more girly, or having a candle being described as gay is nothing I can even comprehend. I'm raising 2 sons. We always encourage them to have emotion, and that crying was okay, but I think that's more rare. If they took that outside the home, they were made fun of for it, or potentially made fun of. Now, my youngest son does seem to be surrounded by more emotionally intelligent people, so he probably felt it less than my older son. We just encouraged that all emotions, anger's okay as well. Sad is okay, tears are okay, happy's okay. But I think that if we encourage our boys or those presenting as such to stifle all of their emotions, I think that's where the aggression comes out. They don't know.
There has to be a balance. There is accepting that everybody has emotions, everybody does, that men have emotions, we do. There's also has to be the understanding that men and women handle emotions differently. We also have to understand that men express their emotions differently. The way that they express them is not going to look like how women express them because they experience them differently. We are more focused on how do you fix it than let me feel it. We're not even worried so much about sharing it with you unless you can give us a solution so that we can fix and alleviate the problem so we can move on.
Stressed, if a woman can talk about what she's feeling, what she's missing, what she's not getting, that will actually raise her estrogen level and her stress levels will go down. Now, if a man is stressed and he talks about his feelings, his stress will only increase. That's a big aha, because every time a man is stressed, he'll stop talking. And when he stops talking, women panic because they don't know different. And they want to go in there. What are you feeling? What's going on? And if he starts talking, he'll just feel worse and worse and worse.
We're focused individuals. We don't multitask like women do. So anytime something like that happens and it's an emotion, if it's getting in the way of me achieving my task, I need to get it out of the way so I can finish my task. I'm focused. I can't multitask while I'm looking at that, while dealing with my emotions, no. Based on how our brains are built, we move through emotions differently.
Right.
I will say that because a lot of men are not raised by their fathers, and because a lot of the fathers, even if they're in the home, are so busy working and doing other stuff that they don't have time to pay attention to their children and to teach them and to see what they need and to really attend to them. And that's not everybody, because technically this generation spends more time with their children than all of the generations of the past, going back to the 1950s. So let's be clear. As parents, we are crushing it in the sense of trying to figure it out. We are not, however, crushing it in figuring it out. Like we're putting in the effort, but it's a phase. Like you have to test in order to figure things out. And we're still in the testing phase where we're trying to see how things work. Because you're not around men or a lot of men or enough men, you might not figure out what are the acceptable ways to express these things, because my son and my daughter express their emotions completely differently. And that's not something we put in them. It's just how they are. And it's something that we've seen grow. And I've seen how, as my influence has come in, how he started to change. I've seen how, as my wife's influence has come in, how my daughter has started to change according to what she's seeing mommy and daddy do. But when they were small, without that heavy influence where they could pick up exactly on how to do things, there was a stark difference in how they handled their emotions. The second thing I want to say really quickly before we get back into it, it's not just about you being healthy for you. You also have to live in the world. You have to live in a world where people will judge you based on the things that you do and how you move. For men, there are a lot of women who, if you are too emotional, ain't beat, because they expect you to be the foundation, meaning they expect you to be stoic, not unemotional, stoic. They expect you to be stable. They expect you to be a provider and a protector. They expect you to be that solid rock foundation so that if they do have an erratic day, they don't have to look over at you and you just as erratic as they are. They know that they can come to you and you're going to stabilize her. And a lot of women look for that in a man. And I do mean a lot. A lot of women prefer masculine men. There's even research about how when women are ovulating that they prefer more masculine traits in men than when they're not ovulating, which makes sense of a lot of conversations like this from a lot of women who are potentially on birth control, who may not be as attracted to those things because they no longer ovulate. So it's no longer a natural part of their bodies, a natural part of what they desire biologically. But guess what? There are a lot of women still having babies. So there are a lot of women who still prefer those other things. So there's a dichotomy happening where you have one side of women saying, we want you guys to be a lot more emotionally intelligent like us. And there's a lot other side of the women who are going, where are the man's men? Where are the strong men at?
Yeah.
So you have these two forces fighting. And I think that's the one thing that we have to understand. The same thing's happening on the guy side. There are a lot of people who are trying to speak for all men or all women. And the reality is, a lot of times we're saying different things, but you still have to live in this world. And at the end of the day, I think that every man has to be satisfied with the image of masculinity that he is reflecting. And you have to figure out where that example you're reflecting is coming from. And you have to be satisfied with that, because if you're not, you're always going to feel uncomfortable in your own skin. If you got anything to say, you just ready to go back.
Go ahead.
They don't know any other way than to become aggressive. And I think that that's a real detriment.
And that's where you think the toxicness comes from. Like, that's when it's stepping into the toxic.
Right. And that there's some sort of expectation, perhaps said, perhaps quiet, that boys, men have to be in athletics. Boys, men have to be in a certain sector of employment. Boys, men have to be the breadwinner. I mean, that's a lot of pressure on boys and men.
And now I think it is a great time to bring up our one disagreeer.
So I was with her until she went there.
Yeah, I know that. Go ahead.
So I'm always going to come from a biblical worldview because, A, I love Jesus.
I'm like, she a Christian.
Sorry, not sorry. Men and women are biologically different. Facts. Argue with God. He put certain things in us when he created us. In the beginning, he gave Adam work to do. Adam was the provider, if you want to look at it like that, because he was to name the animals and everything, till the ground, whatever. After the fall, he said, by the sweat of your brow, you'll eat. Basically, the command was like, you have to work, you have to labor in order for you to provide for yourself. That is a man's role, just like a woman's role would be the nurturer, to take care of her family, to be the one to bring the next generation, to give birth. Like, we all have our roles. And what bothers me right now, especially in this climate, is where everyone is trying to be so, I don't even want to say politically correct. Everybody is tiptoeing and they don't want to hurt people's feelings. And I'm not trying to hurt people's feelings or anything like that by any means, but I'm just like, let's just talk scientifically. Those of you, let's say people who don't even believe in the Bible, like when you look at the science, you can see that men and women are biologically different. There's no way around that. And the more people are trying to make it that men and women are 100% exactly the same, the more confusion and the more issues that we start to have. We can't sit here and say like, oh, well, you know, we can't put all this pressure on boys to be men because like that's too much. It's just like, but that's innately what they were born to do. I'm not saying your 5-year-old that you tell them like, hey, you know, man up. Be realistic, but you groom them, you know, as they grow. They go from boys to men. Hey, boys, men. Mm-hmm. They go from boys to men. So you have to groom them. Same thing with ladies. Like, you have to groom them. And yes, we all have roles to play. That's what makes our society go round. But if we keep on lying to ourselves and lying to people and saying, oh, it doesn't matter, we can all do the exact same thing, our society is going to fall apart. Point blank, period.
Full stop.
Just to try to do a common sense thing here. Mm-hmm. If it really is the case, and there is some evidence to support this, that men do have less connections to their emotions than women do when it comes to which hemisphere of the brain, you know, and they're a little bit more logical, a little bit less emotional. They have emotions, but they don't feel them as much because there's not as many connections. If that is true, would it not make sense that they are the ones who take the pressure of provision? She's like, that's a lot of pressure for a man.
You're built for it.
You're built to take a little more pressure. Now, it's not a massive swath. You can't do everything, right? Especially if you have a family. If you're by yourself, different story. But if you have a family, you can't do everything. It doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman.
Right.
And that's why we're supposed to be there to help each other. When you say you shouldn't have the pressure to provide, I think that biologically men are built to take on more jobs than women are. When you start thinking about muscle mass, when you start thinking about when you start thinking about bone density, when you start thinking about lung capacity, when you start thinking about the ability to regulate temperature, when you start thinking about the fact that we don't have a cycle, which will put us out of commission for a couple of days every month. And some of y'all have it so bad, y'all can't even go to work for 2-3 days. Men don't have any of those burdens. But if you think even way back in the day, before we had the society we had now, where a man had to work pretty much every day to make sure that there was food on the table. He had to hunt. He couldn't take no days off. And as a matter of fact, if you out there hunting, you walking around and you're bleeding is actually a detriment because suddenly you could become the hunted if you out there bleeding and you hunting. That's just going back to way back in the day. I think a lot of those same biological markers make men more apt to be able to work than women are. It is not that women can't work. I think one of the biggest issues is that when we have these conversations, people try to go all the way to the extreme and be like, women can't do anything that is related to making money. And
Stop it. Get some help.
It's not even that deep. Men and women are more alike than they are different, but the differences are significant.
Right.
And those differences should feed into the roles that we have in society for the sake of efficiency, if nothing else. Why would you not have the one that's a little bit more robotic, not a lot, but a little bit more robotic, a little bit stronger, doesn't have to worry as much about the temperature, has the ability to stay into something longer, maybe has a higher ability for cardio. That's lung capacity. I can do it longer. I can do it stronger.
Harder, better, faster, stronger.
Why would you not put that person who is generally that in the population in the part of the holding up of that society that requires those physical traits? Why wouldn't you do that? Just for the sake of efficiency. And I think that part of the issue is we've gotten so comfortable. We've made the physical advantages that men have obsolete, at least in sight. We don't see the behind the scenes stuff that they still need to do.
Right.
I've got this crazy video. I'm gonna put it in here. It's pretty popular where you see these guys doing these crazy jobs that I could never imagine seeing a woman doing. As this dude is like, whatever he was doing, he was getting something off of a pipe and the daggone wave was going over his head and he's still working. While the wave is going over in his head. I see dudes working on scaffolds and on windows and stuff, and they like freaking 20 stories off the ground, and they just. But we don't pay attention to that stuff. We love the fact that our houses get power, but we're not worried about the guy that's 20, 30 feet off the ground fixing the power lines. It's not a bunch of women doing that. It's not a bunch of women doing the stuff with the oil. It's not a bunch of women trucking. And I don't really think that they should be. I think that they should have the jobs they have. But I think that the problem is because we've gotten so comfortable and we don't see those realities all of the daggone time. We don't see the people out there hunting the things that we're eating. And the more urban you get, the more detached from that reality people tend to be. Because for them, I'm just going to the supermarket.
Right.
Do you know how many dudes had to make that supermarket situation work for you? And then they're like, I don't need no man. Well, you don't need to date a man. No, you don't need a husband. No, but if men were not here and this society collapses, which it would, because regardless of what y'all say women can do, they are not doing.
This is true.
So if men just disappeared, society would collapse. Period. Full stop. This would look like The Walking Dead that fast.
Lord have mercy.
Bruh, no power, no water, no garbage collection.
The sewer.
Come on.
Toilets.
This is the most ungrateful society of women that I've ever seen in my life.
Ouch.
The big part of it is they just don't know because it's so comfortable. They don't have to see the uncomfortable crap that holds their world up.
Come on up. Why don't you start by just kind of letting us know why you think that there's really no toxic masculinity?
It really comes from just kind of the perception people have on how men react naturally. This toxicness that stems from like the household, how they grew up. And as you can see, like through the feminist movement, it's more empowering for women to be single moms and to do whatever they want. And that a lot of the times those men that they deem as toxic, actually came up from those households when they don't have the structure. Because like you said, it's a good for the women's side to have, be emotional and let you express yourself. But without the man, you need to have someone in there that has like a foundation, and that brings men a lot of strength, that they have that example of a man to be strong and how to actually handle your emotions instead of just letting them out and stuff. I think it's a disclassification of just maybe people who have issues, maybe they need help in some sort of way, they feel insecure, but by victimizing them as like this, they're a toxic male and putting them in this box, it further isolates them from like society and pushes them down deeper down that rabbit hole. By isolating these men and like kind of putting men in like a trait of like, okay, that's toxic, I'm going to cut them off or whatever. I feel like it's very dangerous and it's very hindering to society because, you need to understand where the guy's coming from too. It's not just they have a perfect personality and so they're going to be overly masculine and now they're overtaking things. Like it's never that situation, as you guys alluded to earlier. It's more of like they need help. Be cool. Maybe they're trying to talk to you. Maybe they're trying to have some sort of conversation, but it comes off a certain way. And since society is labeling that, they get labeled as a toxic person and it's hurting them as a whole, and it's not helpful at all.
So you're saying like the label itself is what's continuing to allow men to be toxic, if that is a thing. Like what it's being seen as is toxic, right? Like,
yeah,
because it's basically just writing them off like, oh, you're toxic, so like you're...
Yeah, and it's like a thing too, where it's like, oh, well, you're gonna label me that? Okay, maybe I might actually go full in and be that 100%. And maybe that's where the incel movement's kind of coming from, the we hate women. I feel like what it started from is like the feminist side of we hate men. And men were like, okay, what's going on? And as a reaction to that, it starts to have that swing of, everybody's being on different polarizing sides and, because they don't feel represented.
I mean, what do you guys think of that? You go ahead.
I appreciate the need to remove labels from things because I think as a society we do tend to over-label things. Your claim to women having emotions and needing a man to balance them out per se is not true. And by implying that women need a foundation, you're implying that women can't build foundations on their own. If you are inferring that women are more emotional, that doesn't mean they're incapable of handling their emotions when a man isn't around. In order to grasp hard concepts as humans, that we need to label things in order for our brains to make sense of them. So like I said, while I do appreciate your call to not maybe label men as toxic because then that could just fuel the toxicity, do you have any other suggestions maybe then for what we should call behavior that men exhibit that is per se like dangerous or...
All right, these are socially considered masculine traits. We did it in a recent video. Strength and toughness, independence and self-reliance, leadership and dominance, competitiveness and aggression, emotional stoicism, providing and protecting, rationality and logic. Many women I've found love these traits as long as it's working for them, hate it when it's against them. That's number one. Number two, when people talk about like toxic masculinity, any of these traits out of whack is just toxic because there are women who aspire to strength and toughness, independence and self-reliance, leadership and dominance, competitiveness and aggression, emotional stoicism even, providing and protecting, rationality and logic. I watch these weightlifters. I love watching them because they're from my hometown. They actually work out literally like 2 blocks from where I used to live. Like it's crazy. So I know exactly where they are. Sort of kind of from the hood. They like right on the cusp, but it's definitely in the hood because our car got broken into like 32 times over there. So, when you look at the stuff they do, I'm gonna try to put a short or something in here from the way that they be in the gym, bro. Them dudes go hard.
Used to want to suffer. Used to be hungry. Now you soft and you know it. Turn me up! 56-pound bar, 240-pound change, and a you. I'd rather die! You want to break? Get it. Hey!
I'm naturally attracted to that type of stuff, right? I'm the type of guy, I like clothes, I like fashion. You know what I'm saying? I sew my own clothes sometimes. It's not even that deep, but I sometimes sew my own clothes because I'm into it and stuff. I think I probably could work for like a tailor shop or something like that. So I really do like clothes, but on the other side, there's a part of me that definitely is, I'm hitting that gym, bro. I'm hitting that squat rack. I definitely like throwing the weights around. I used to like playing football, basketball, and all of those things. Learning how to be competitive without being toxic and being mean-spirited, learning how to be a team player, things of that nature, learning how to interact with people. Being on teams, I think, develops a lot of things that men definitely need to be successful in this world. So there's so much to be said about it. It's hard to be something that you can pack into a 20-minute conversation. This video is not going to be 20 minutes. And I think that the issue is there's always a focus on toxic masculinity because I think a lot of women are simply trying to shame men out of being men. And then that's where a lot of it comes down to. But the reality is just toxic traits. Anything out of order and out of balance turns toxic, even if it's considered a more feminine trait. If you're a doormat, that's technically a toxic trait, but people would consider it feminine because you're willing to follow. But you're willing to follow to your detriment to the point that it makes no sense. And you're a doormat. It's toxic too, but nobody calls it toxic because toxic is supposed to be harmful. It is harmful.
But it is harmful. I was going to say being a doormat is harmful.
That's the thing. And so, oh God, I got so much more to say, but I got to shut up because this is a long video and I don't want to go any further.
Okay, well, that's going to wrap it up for today's video. If you guys enjoyed or if you have comments, please leave them down below. Let us know, okay? We want to converse with y'all. We want to know what you think. All right, and if you made it this far, go ahead and smash that subscribe button, turn on your post notifications, and give us a thumbs up. Right. All right, really, it helps us out. It helps the algorithm. It tells YouTube that you actually appreciate what we're putting down.
What we're putting down. I bet you didn't see me coming. You didn't know. Yeah, I was coming back for you.
Hey, everybody. Down in the description, there are 2 links.
One is to a GoFundMe, and the other one is to a video that explains what the GoFundMe is for. Long story short, we have a medical situation with our daughter that we have to pay for everything out of pocket, and we could really use you guys' help. If you have the time, we'd love for you to go check it out. If you have the money, the funds, we'd love for you guys to help. If not, maybe you could send a link to somebody else who can help. We thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Press the out button.